Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Broadway Jets YouTube channel. You'll know me from Twitter as NYJ Mike. I'm joined as always by the master of receipts, NYJ Matt. And Matt, today, Woody Johnson had some comments, and people were talking about them.
Yeah. The Woody Johnson comments are fascinating because most people should agree he said what you needed to say, right? Very simple. The quarterback is the missing piece. Check. We all know that. And he's willing to do whatever he can to bring in a good quarterback.
Right.
The other big talking point is he did not give a playoff mandate. And anyone who thought Woody Johnson was going to go out there and say, yeah, if we don't make the playoffs, every single person in the building is gone. No owner would ever do that. So for people complaining about not giving a playoff mandate, I can't believe it. Like, what are your thoughts on that? It ended up being a big storyline today on Twitter.
I mean, surface level, you're right. You said the right things. Are the Jets a quarterback away? The answer is yes. Is it good to hear your owner say that? Probably, yeah. Meaning that the organization is going to not be desperate, but be, in the market for the best of the best. I mean, the problem is, the power structure. Woody Johnson and when Christopher Johnson hired Douglas and Saleh to do a job, if they wanted to keep LaFleur, it's tough for Woody to come in and basically, say that the Jets should fire LaFleur, that they need to do certain things, that the quarterback's not working, blah, blah, blah. Maybe leave it to those guys, Woody kind of getting involved. But what he said wasn't wrong.
Right. So he goes, we need a quarterback missing piece. Check. We all know that. But the fact that he said, I'm willing to put whatever it takes to get one in here is important. He even came back and said Zach Wilson should have been behind a veteran quarterback, which is funny that he's actually talking about the 53-man roster when it comes to strategy, which I'm fine with Woody doing and calling that out. Jordan Schultz did report that Woody Johnson wanted LaFleur fired. I think it's a false report. I think it's a scenario that makes sense. So I'm just going to tweet about it and pretend like I know. And I'm not trying to go against Jordan Schultz here, but they asked Woody Johnson and he said, yeah, I mean, I have conversations about everything, but at the end of the day, they make the call. It's their staff. They asked Douglas, they asked Saleh, and he goes, yeah, no, Woody Johnson gives whatever input he can, but we make the final call. I don't think it's implied that they were pressured to fire LaFleur. I think exactly what happened. He kind of lost the offensive side of the ball. People wanted to change and we move on. So a lot of people taking that report at face value, I think, is incorrect. I don't think Woody Johnson overstepped his bounds here. He's the owner. He owns the entire fucking team. He can do whatever he wants. And I think he did give autonomy to the guys that he hired and that his brother hired to do the job right.
Yeah, we're not Woody Johnson haters. The Jets have had some good times with Woody. There's one glaring thing that Woody did really, and that's hire Adam Gase. And it really was
No,
also
it wasn't
Christopher
even him.
Johnson. Exactly. It's, his ownership. But
The
that's
glaring mistake for Woody is the Maccagnan and Bowles years, where at first it looked good and then it kind of falls apart. But everything before that, you look at it and you say, yeah, I mean, playoffs with 7 out of 12 years, like there is good things there. So I just think it's too easy to be someone that immediately just hates Woody. It's his fault. Sell the team. I think that's an overrated and oversimplified take. But at the end of the day, you can't argue that they're about to have the second and first longest playoff drought in professional sports, and the only constant is the Johnson family in doing that.
it's unbelievable that Woody Johnson's name translates directly to boner penis or penis boner. But I don't think he's the worst owner. His Twitter account has been pretty good. He's been saying the right things. He's engaging with the fans. The Jets, it's football. It's not like in baseball. You can really have a shitty owner because they don't spend money. Football, there's, salary cap and salary minimums in place where you have to spend a certain amount of money. The Jets certainly have been aggressive. They've tried to get coaches. They've tried different ways to hire coaches. They remember when they hired Todd Bowles, they made that ridiculous they hired a bunch of guys to make a consulting committee. Yeah. So, they're trying, they're doing certain things. We should get Schultz on the show and ask him about that report. We should have him on the podcast.
Yeah, I'd be more than happy to press him on that because I just think it's too easy now in social media and Twitter to, for example, today, LaFleur fired. Immediately, John Benton fired. And then people start assuming Rob Calabrese will be fired. And then they start saying per sources Rob Calabrese fired. Like 3 or 4 pretty notable accounts did that. Those, unfortunately, are people that you get the check mark, you got a lot of followers, you say, I'm going to, get this right because it's probably going to happen. And then when it doesn't happen, you have an egg on your face. So I've never liked that reporting. The other thing with Woody Johnson, we have no sources. I cannot stress that enough.
Not one.
We have negative sources. I can promise you. We were told one thing by a blue checkmark guy one time, and it's around
We
Woody
didn't say
Johnson.
anything. Yeah.
It's about, I can say this part. We won't say who it is, but he implied that Woody Johnson did meddle earlier in the 2010s on hiring like an O-line coach, which was interesting, right? He's like,
Yeah.
he was a good candidate. He wanted a specific guy, and he came in here. I don't think that happens anymore. I think you learn from your mistakes, but at the end of the day, everything he said today made sense. You're gonna have some people on Twitter, no matter what, hate Woody, but they hired the GM that we wanted. They hired the coach that we wanted. They drafted the quarterback, the organization that everyone seemed to want besides Mike and I. But they did everything right. And now we're looking at it. And I think it's unfair to immediately throw your hands up and say, okay, Woody Johnson's the problem.
Yeah, I mean, if Woody can't say what he said today, then he shouldn't speak to the media at all. He just said, like you said, kind of what everyone's thinking. I do understand if he actually did meddle and the Jets did not want to fire,
right,
the floor, they didn't want to do certain things, and Woody comes in and says you have to do that. It's not going to be good for you guys if you don't do that. Maybe give him some kind of weird ultimatum. I don't think that's what happened either. So, like, Woody's fine. I think the Jets did a good job changing the culture, and better times are ahead. That's the one thing. It's like the way the season ended, it really could have went the other way. There was obviously a couple close games that the Jets lost down the stretch. If the Jets are in the playoffs this year, we're not having these conversations, and it's just going to be such a more positive landscape where we're like, we have 3 blue chip guys in offense. You have 3. There really is a chance just get 5 All-Pro guys with, not this year, but with Garrett and Brees, AVT, Sauce, Quinnen. These are legitimate, ridiculous players that they sprinkled on both sides of the ball. And instead of talking about that, we're saying, fire these guys, this is a disaster. The defense isn't as good as we thought, all this stuff. So it's, Woody came out, said what needed to happen. The Jets are basically a quarterback away. And it's true. And I'm not going to curse him for doing it unless he really got in the way of the front office.
And I'm happy they're saying it because the Jets historically not have always talked about the glaring need. You look at positions like there's 2014 going into the year with no cornerback on the roster.
Yeah,
and they're
Antonio
like
Allen when Dimitri Patterson went AWOL.
And they'll say, every position matters. But no, that year cornerback mattered and you didn't have anyone there. So the fact that up front, Woody was asked, are you willing to spend big for a veteran quarterback? He said, absolutely. Then they came back with no matter the cost. And he goes, well, like there's a salary cap, but yeah, that's kind of the missing piece. That's the kind of guy that if one of these 4 guys, I'll even say 5 guys, because a name will be thrown in recently that we'll see where it goes. One of these 5 guys, I would bet probably $1,000 versus the field that they'll be on the roster, and that is Lamar Jackson, who is right now some real serious concerns. If he doesn't suit up for a playoff game when he's like 80%, that's a problem.
Terrible.
Carr clearly will have a new team. I would rather sign him than have to trade a pick for him and give him that ridiculous contract. So I don't think the Jets would trade for him. They would get him. Garoppolo, looking at
Rodgers,
which is, I don't think, a likely scenario if he's going to just stay put and make $60 million. And then the final one, Matt Stafford, given if McVay leaves, the injuries are concerning, but at the end of the day, those 5 guys, if you want to make a big move, get an adult in the room, a veteran, all those guys are consistent playoff makers. So we'll see. We'll never know.
Any of those guys would just be such an upgrade over what the Jets have had. I don't think people realize, even if it is Derek Carr or Jimmy G, if a guy comes out and throws for around 4,000 yards and 25 touchdowns, it's something that we just haven't seen. You saw it once in 2015 with Fitzpatrick. Once. So it'll be very exciting. Even there was 1 year with Sanchez, he threw 26 touchdowns in 2011. So, it's just, I don't think fans realize how awesome it will be to watch that. We'll just be watching real offensive football. And with this defense, why not? Why can't they just go far?
Yeah, and it's something I brought up on the early before the season pod where we questioned what if Zach Wilson doesn't pan out. I said in today's NFL, the quarterback mobility is so insane that you can get a guy like the 5 guys we listed and be good if you draft well and you get maybe like an all-pro corner, a Pro Bowl receiver, an all-pro running back, and then a pretty good edge guy with your top 35 picks.
And there they are.
Why not us? All right, Mike, any final thoughts? And hey, if you made it this far, throw a like, throw a subscription. I watch a lot of YouTube videos and they're always like, don't forget to like and subscribe. And I never do it. So I feel very hypocritical asking people to do it now. But hey, if you like the Jets content, please feel free to go ahead and hit that.
Might as well. We're throwing out some content, making boner jokes about our owner.
Yeah.
Discussing.
I thought you were gonna go like dick, or like you were gonna go something.
Cock dick cock. Balls? No, not balls.
Now this will be demonetized, even though we don't have enough subscribers to even.
Yeah,
make
once
any
we have
more.
1,000 subscribers, I'll stop saying dick.
All right, Mike. Good talking to you, buddy.
All right, buddy.
Take care.